I'm almost ready, guys. Almost. I'm actually pulling out my phone this time. Did anyone else feel like they blacked out in March? Because I definitely feel like I blacked out in March. Both life-wise and reading-wise. Life-wise, I feel like March was here and gone. Reading-wise, I feel like the beginning of March was a year ago. I don't even know what to say about March. I read 8 books. I have not read more than 5 books in a month since October. I have not read more than 7 books in a month since last summer. So, all that being said, yes, I read 8 books in March. I'm technically filming this before the end of the month, so if I finish the book that I'm reading right now before the end of the month, then I will have read 9 books. So, but there's a separate vlog coming out for that, so I'm not going to go over that book here. I will just include that in my April wrap-up, even if I finish that in March. Alright. So like I said, I read 8 books in March. My yearly average rating is currently sitting at a 3.88, which is not bad. I had some really good books in March, and I had some not so good books in March. And I listened to 3 audiobooks. Don't ask me how I got extra hours, because I probably shouldn't announce that on YouTube. I didn't do anything illegal. Spotify just might not like what I did. Anyways, let's just start going over what books I read. Okay, so like I said, I feel like I completely blacked out this month for reading. But the first book that I read is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the sequel to Divine Rivals. We have Iris and Roman. It's taking place in a World War II like fantasy world where there's a war between gods. And Roman and Iris' relationship starts out by them sending magical letters through their typewriters to each other. And Roman knows it's Iris. Iris doesn't know it's Roman. That was how their romance started out. And then if you know how Divine Rivals ended, this was a very highly anticipated release. This was released at the end of December of last year. And I rated it 3.5 stars. I was not disappointed by it. Like, I actually enjoyed focusing on the war more, because we didn't get a lot of the war in the first book. We got a lot more of it in this book. However, I feel like if we had had equal parts war and romance instead of mostly war and a little bit of romance, then it would have been like at least a 4 stars. I definitely feel like I blacked out reading this book. This duology is slower for me. The pacing is just not that fantastic. I would just sit down and I would read like 150 pages at a time. And I skimmed a lot. But not in like a bad way, if that makes sense. Like, I genuinely enjoyed my experience. It was just slow and I could have done with more romance. Okay, the next book that I finished this month is an audiobook. And that is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I wish I had read this book as like a physical copy. This is another one of those books where I feel like if I had read the physical copy, I would have rated it 5 stars. And I technically did rate the audiobook 5 stars. However, I don't remember as much of it as I would I feel like if it were a physical book. But I'm keeping the rating at 5 stars because this book was just so unique. I've never read anything like it. So The Unmaking of June Farrow centers around this woman. And she grows up on a flower farm in a little tiny town in North Carolina, and the audiobook is read with a southern accent. Like a small town country accent. Oh my gosh. Best accent out there. So, anyways, it centers on this woman and she lives on this flower farm, and her family is kind of known. The women in her family are known as like crazy, like the town crazies basically, because they have this curse that's passed down through their family line, and her life's mission is to break this curse that has been set on the women of her family literally since like the flower farm started, like over 100 years before this book takes place. It's a lot of science fiction, or like not science fiction, like magical realism and romance, and it's like a mystery all wrapped up in one, and it has a lot of family history involved, which I loved so much. You involve family drama, I'm all here for it. I have no complaints about this book. This book was so unique. It was so perfect. It made me want to go and live in a small town in North Carolina, and I would read that book again in a heartbeat. I was looking up special editions of the book before I was even halfway through. Like, that is how much I loved The Unmaking of June Farrow. And if you are in any kind of reading slump, or if you need something different, go read it. I highly suggest it. It's not for everyone. It's one of those books where you're gonna either like it or you don't. I loved it. The next book that I finished is in the reading blog that I released a couple weeks ago, I think, and that is The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. This is a thriller that takes place over 2 timelines. You have the present timeline where there are these 2 women and they've been best friends their entire lives, but they haven't been close recently. So they're taking this trip to a villa in Italy so that they can kind of reconnect. They're both writers, so they're both writing their books while they're at the villa for a 6-week stay. The other timeline takes place in 1974 when a small rock artist and his girlfriend and his girlfriend's sister and like his manager and like a couple of other rock people, they go stay in this villa, and the little rock art, like the small rock artist, ends up dead. So throughout the story you're trying to figure out who killed the guy. The character that you're getting the present point of view from, she's going through I think she's going through a divorce. The aspects of her relationship are just so odd, and this book was really odd. I don't know how else to put it. I rated it a 3.25 stars. Not my favorite. As far as thrillers go, it was okay, and it was very short. This book is under 300 pages. So, I don't know. I didn't hate it. It was alright. It was entertaining. The next book I finished is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is by far the longest book I've ever read. It is 700 pages long. I can't say much about this book because it's the 3rd book in the ACOTAR series, and you get all the politics and the plot in this book. I feel like if I were to reread Asimov, I would rate it over 4 stars now, because I rated this book 4.5, and I feel like I can appreciate Asimov for what it was. There's not as much romance in this book, which I actually appreciated. Like I said, this book is very plot driven, very politics forward, and I don't know, I really appreciate that. It kept my attention a lot better than Asimov did. 4.5 stars. The next book I finished is another audiobook, and that is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This was a very random pick for me for an audiobook, but if you haven't heard of Yellowface, I believe it was the Goodreads Book of the Year for 2023. It was someone's book of the year, someone's fiction winner, I don't know. It was an award winner in 2023. It's about this lady. She's an author, and she's best friends with a famous author. And the famous author dies. And she showed this author her next manuscript before she died. No one else had seen the manuscript, but she showed it to her. This author that we're following in the story has to decide like how she's gonna go about this manuscript, and it's a whole publishing journey. You get to see an entire publishing journey. As someone who's been reading for my entire life, I was very interested to kind of see the behind the scenes of the publishing industry. The narrator of the story, the like author who's telling the story, she is something else. I don't even have like a word to describe her. Like, there were some things I agreed with, but there was a lot that I didn't agree with, and it was just a lot of morally gray areas, and it just got really twisted and kind of all over the place. I really appreciated this story. I rated it 3 stars. I would 100% recommend this book. And it was very entertaining. It was just so different, I guess, from what I normally would read. Like I said, I enjoyed the story, and I don't think it ever really lost my attention. It was just so like out there. Very out there. The next book that I finished is also an audiobook, and that book is Finley Donovan is Killing It by Ellie Cosimano. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. I'm probably not. This book, it's again about an author who is divorced. I was reading a lot of books about authors. This lady, like I said, she's going through a divorce, and she is an author. And she meets up with her agent at the beginning of the book in this Panera, and she is meeting to discuss the next book that she's about to write because she's under contract for it and she's struggling to come up with the idea. And so she's sitting there with her agent, and she writes thriller mysteries. So she's talking about this gory mystery that she's going to write, and her agent is like, yes, like easy, neat, quick, like get the kill done or whatever. Some lady overhears her in the Panera and asks her to go kill her husband. You can take that for what you will. There's some mafia involvement in this book. It is hilarious. It's kind of a cozy mystery. It's so funny. All the characters in this book are just hilarious and goofy and like kind of outlandish, but in the best way possible. I rated it 4 stars. I loved this book. Like I said, I definitely think it falls in the cozy mystery category. And the main lady, she's just so witty and smart and clever, and I could never be her. Not like I'm trying to be her or anything. I'm not trying to go out and kill someone's husband, but I do kind of admire her in a way. Would 100% recommend that book, especially if you're like me and you don't love mysteries and thrillers. You would love that book. I promise you, you would love that book. The seventh, how on earth did I read more than 7 books this month? Book that I read is Delirium by Lauren Oliver. This is a young adult dystopian novel. I think it was released in 2009, so like right in the beginning of like the dystopian peak era. And I don't know, I needed a dystopian book. I've explained this book, I feel like, a lot so far, but I'm gonna explain it again. So, we are following Lena, and she is 17, almost 18, and in this society, when you turn 18, you receive something called the cure. And what the cure is it's a cure for love. So love in this society is seen as like the ultimate evil. It causes all these different diseases, and it just basically makes a mess of your life. And Lena is almost 18 and she's about to receive the cure, and she's super excited about it. And then she meets this guy named Alex. When you fall in love with a boy in this society, you basically become like a town outcast, exiled. Sometimes you can be executed. Like it just doesn't go well ever. So you have to see the decisions that she makes in this book. You see how crazy the society is that she lives in, which I feel like is always such a fun part of dystopian books, is like how freaking insane people are in the government. It blows my mind. And it was a very interesting read, but I rated it 3.5 stars. I have checked out the last 2 books in the trilogy from the library. I don't know if I will read them. I feel like it's one of those things where like I'll read them. Like if I read them before I have to return them, I read them before I have to return them. If I don't, I don't. You know? And the pacing was quick. It was just, I feel like it's almost a book that I could have written. And clearly I don't have the creative writing training that a lot of these authors have. And I was skimming a lot just because I feel like the writing wasn't very interesting. Like the writing was very bland and mundane. And there was certainly a lot of description. I don't know, it was just very mundane. It feels like something a high schooler would write. And I don't know how old Lauren Oliver was when she wrote this. Maybe she was in high school, for all I know. The last book that I read in March is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, which you guys actually helped me pick. And if you were one of the 5 people that voted in that poll, genuinely thank you, because I had no idea what I was going to pick up to read next. But you guys chose this book. A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas is a novella in between ACOTAR and A Court of Silver Flames. Everyone describes it as the holiday special of your favorite TV series. That's 100% what it is. However, if you enjoy the characters and you're connected to the characters, you'll probably enjoy this book. It was a very mindless read for me. I didn't have to use any brain power to read this book. And it was a nice transition, a nice cool down after ACOTAR. And I feel like we did see a couple of important things happen with the characters. in this book. It just wasn't anything fantastic. Like I said, it was very mindless. I feel like nothing really happened. There were definitely some important things that needed to happen to move the plot forward at a reasonable pace, but it was mostly just brainless filler. So I rated it 3 stars. I feel like it didn't deserve anything higher than that, but I enjoyed it. If you're reading the series, read it. It's like, it's not a waste of time. Like I said, I keep saying it's brainless, mindless filler. That is 100% what it is. Wow, that is the 8 books that I've read this month. Like I said, I'm technically reading another book right now for another video. I don't think I will finish that before the end of the month, but if I happen to, it will still go in the April reading wrap up. I'm still like in shock that March is over and that I read 8 books this month. We have come to the end of another month, 2024, and happy April Fool's Day. Have an amazing day and an amazing April and an amazing month. But if you feel like it, subscribe, like, and comment. I love hearing from you guys, and any support that you guys give me just warms my heart. I love you so much, and I will see you whenever I decide to post again. See ya!